Okay, this is the notes for 610, which is on the discriminant. The discriminant is a piece of the quadratic formula that I highlighted that here, the b squared minus 4ac. It doesn't tell us what the answer is, what x will make the equation equal 0, but it does give us a little information about the solutions. Again, so I told you that here, and it will tell us what type of answer we will get. So before we do that, we need a little review. This shouldn't be too bad. We did it back in chapter 5. So there are 6 questions here, and all I want you to be able to do is determine, is it a rational number, an irrational number, or neither. So push pause for a moment. If you're in the classroom, you can work with someone next to you and just determine rational or irrational or neither, and then come back and check your answers. All right, the answers are here. 81 was rational because the square root of 81 is 9, and you can express 9 as a fraction, 9 over 1. Square root of negative 3 is neither. It is not a real number. You can't square root of negative. Square root of 7 is irrational. You cannot express it as the ratio of 2 integers or as a fraction. Square root of 50, irrational. Square root of 9, rational. Square root of 9 is 3, and I can express that as 3 over 1. And the square root of negative 6 is neither. You can't square root a negative. All right, we're going to use the discriminant to find what kind of answers we will get. Again, not the actual answers. So when you solve for the discriminant, you're going to get 3 possible things happen. It's a negative number. And if it's a negative number, then your problem's not going to have a solution. Because remember back here, look where the discriminant lives. It lives under the square root sign. So if you figure out what this number is and it's negative, well, if you were solving, you'd be square rooting a negative. You can't do that. So if you solve for the discriminant, you get a negative number, then you just say no solution. You don't even have to do anything else. You could get the discriminant is a positive perfect square, such as 16. So if it's a positive perfect square, such as that, when you square root it, you'll get 4. Okay, for example, if it was 16, and you'll be able to get a rational solution at the end. The other option is a positive number that's not a perfect square, then it will have real irrational solutions. So an example of a positive number that's not a perfect square would be 20. So in the examples we have here, we're going to evaluate the discriminant and use it to tell what kind of solutions the equation has. So we're not saying what the answers are, we're just saying the type of answers. So again, you have to make sure it equals 0, just like when we did quadratic formula. Identified the A, the B, and the C. And I'm not going to plug this into the full quadratic formula. I'm just going to plug it into the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. And when I plug all those in, I get negative 59. Okay, so that means if I were to plug it in, I'd get a negative under the square root. So the equation will have no solution. So that would be your answer, no solution. You would say discriminant equals negative 59. The equation has no solution. All right, over here, I'd actually like you guys to try the next 3 on your own. So please push pause, try these, and then come back and check your answers. All right, in the top right-hand corner, again, make sure it equals 0. That's an important part you got to do first. All right, I identified my A, my B, and my C. I plug that into the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. And when I solved, and again, you can just do that in your calculator, I got 49. Well, 49 is a perfect square. And when it goes back under the square root in the full quadratic formula, that's going to result in a rational number. So what my answer would be is the discriminant is 49. The equation will have real rational solutions. So that's what my result is going to be. You're going to say what the discriminant is and what that means. Over here, I identified my A, B, and C. Again, making sure it equals 0 first. I plugged that in. I got 24. 24 is not a perfect square, but it is positive. So there are going to be solutions to this problem. They're just not going to be able to be written as a fraction. So I would say the discriminant is 24. The equation will have real irrational solutions. And finally on this one, when I checked, I went, wait a second, this doesn't equal 0. So the first thing I had to do was make it equal 0. Subtraction property of equality, subtract 5 from both sides. Identified my A, B, and C. I plugged them into the discriminant and solved. I got 109. 109 is not a perfect square, but I can get answers because I can square root 109. I just get irrational numbers. So again, I would say the discriminant is 109. The equation will have real irrational solutions. In the last one, it's a kind of an example of a word problem. We're using that vertical motion that we used from 6-9. A target plane flies at 2,100 meters. An anti-aircraft gun fires a projectile with an initial velocity of 200 meters per second. Will the projectile ever reach the altitude of the plane? So notice here, I didn't say when will it reach. I just said will it. I don't care when it does. I just want to know, is it going to reach it? So identified the distance, the rate, and I didn't know the time. This is just like we did in 6-9. If you don't know about that, go back and watch that video. I plugged them into D equals RT minus 5T squared. I said, okay, I can't really do anything until it equals 0. So I added 5T squared to both sides, subtracted 200T from both sides. So I got it equal to 0. And now, because it didn't say when, it just wants to know if, I'm just going to use the discriminant. So I solved for the discriminant, and I got negative 2,000. Well, if I plug that into the full quadratic formula, the negative 2,000 is going to be under a square root. Can't do that. So will it ever reach the target plane? No, it will not reach the necessary altitude. And we could say, because the discriminant okay. So you're going to do some practice now with the homework. So make sure to come back and check your answers on that too.